one of the senators in Montana is a Democrat, John Tester. Tim Sheehy is running against him as a Republican. He's with us now. Tim, how you doing, brother?
Doing great, Mike. How are you?
Good. Give us the background on how a Democrat won in Montana. What's the history of this, and how can we right this problem?
Well, I appreciate you asking because I get this question a lot. A lot of people think Montana, we're a big square western state, so we just must be deep red like everything else. And although we are largely deep red now, our history is more complicated. The political history of Montana really is pretty purple. In fact, it's blue. And for about a century, almost all the 20th century, Montana was a blue state. We had two Democrat senators for almost a century unbroken. We had a very progressive union labor movement here in the state that created a very strong Democrat Party machine. Mike Mansfield was one of the longest serving Senate Majority Leaders until Mitch McConnell just overtook him, and he was a Democrat from Montana. And just 9 years ago, 7 of 8 statewide seats in Montana, elected offices, were held by Democrats, just 9 years ago. And today we've added another congressional seat. 8 of 9 are held by Republicans. So to your point, he's a holdover from a bygone era. And some of those previous generation Democrats were, in fact, the union, blue dog, lunch bucket Democrats who were focused on the working man. But John Tester has really been on the progressive wing of the party. But the media and his campaign managers and he himself have been masterful for the last 30 years. He's been in elected office for 30 years at the state level and federal level. Have been masterful at branding him as a moderate, a common sense Democrat who, he's a Bible thumping, gun toting, border security Democrat. The simple truth is he doesn't vote that way. He has voted for the Biden-Harris agenda every single time it's mattered. F from the NRA, 100% Planned Parenthood voting record. He's as progressive as they come, and now finally we're going to put him away.
Well, I'm watching a commercial of him. And here he is driving an old pickup truck with a gun in the gun rack, and he's wearing a flannel shirt. So,
classic John Tester. I mean, he is I call him two-faced Tester because he goes to D.C. He's a full-on progressive socialist voter. I mean, he votes with Elizabeth Warren. He votes with Bernie Sanders. He votes in lockstep with the Biden-Harris agenda. That's just fact. The voting record is fact. But then he comes home and the Democrats will spend $200 million every 6 years wrapping him in flannel and Carhartt jackets and convincing Montana voters that he is a moderate. And they get away with it. And a few things are different this time. Number one, Trump's on the ballot. He's never run with Trump on the ballot. Trump is very popular in Montana because he's got common sense policies that benefit the American worker. And those are the type of policies that Democrats used to say they advocated for, and maybe they did 60 years ago. But these former Democrat union voters who are pro-life, pro-gun, pro-border, Democrat, they don't really exist anymore. And those folks, like West Virginia, are now voting loyally for the Trump ballot. And it's not because they became Republicans; it's because the Democrat Party left them; they abandoned them, and that's exactly what's happened in Montana. But his branding exercise, which has worked, is going to be a lot tougher this time because Trump's on the ballot.
That's right. So. Last question on John Tester, and then we'll talk about you. What's his motivation then? So, does he really believe in open borders? And we were just talking to our Second Amendment guy about gun buyback programs and all these leftist stuff. Does he really believe that stuff, or does he just go there and vote whatever he needs to do in order to stay in power because he likes being a senator? What do you think his motivation is?
I've only met the guy once at our debate. So I'm not going to do some sort of psychoanalysis on him because I simply don't know. But I will tell you, I know exactly how he votes. I know exactly the policies he supports. And like you said, it's full-on extreme liberal policies every step of the way, from Green New Deals to Inflation Reduction Act to 100% Planned Parenthood to F from the NRA. He is in lockstep with the Biden-Harris agenda and has been his entire career.
Tell me about your company.
Well, I was a Navy SEAL officer, as you know. My wife's a Marine. We served during our nation's longest war. I got wounded, so we got discharged, and we started our company in our barn here, startup, about 2 of us in the barn, all veteran-founded. And the mission was to bring the airborne surveillance and close air support capability that we benefited from as SEALs on the ground in Afghanistan, apply that same model to wildland firefighting. Because about the time I got out, there was an incident in Arizona, the Arnell Mountain Fire, where 19 firefighters were killed fighting that fire. And I realized our technology could have helped ameliorate that situation, potentially save those lives had we been there. So we started my company, Bridger Aerospace. Bridge, like, the bridge over the Bridger Mountains are the mountains right next to our airport. And I'm proud to say, from founding in our barn, we've created over 400 jobs from scratch in the last 9.5 years. We spun out a couple of companies, a technology company, a flight training company, aviation logistics company. And to this day, Bridger Aerospace still, we fight wildfires all over the world. And obviously, as you've seen in the news, we've been very busy lately. So it's a great mission. We water bomb fires. We've mapped them with infrared. And it's been a great success story with an all-veteran founding management team. And I'm proud of that. And as a result, cool. we're in this race because small business is the bedrock of our economy.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Good for you. I got a couple SEAL friends who, when they leave, they're trying to figure out what to do with their lives right now, and trying to figure out how they can best take the skills they have into the private sector. And you did a pretty good job with that, right? That's pretty smart. That's sharp. What is the technology that what capabilities do you bring to fighting these fires? And I want to bridge this into some environmental questions as well. But what did you bring that didn't exist before in that space?
Well, a few things. And a lot of this, has existed before. And this is kind of the same story with the military. A lot of times you'll have these tools sitting around, and maybe they've been presented before on the tool bench. And a lot of times those tools will be sitting there, but these government agencies are not built to innovate. They're not built even to produce results. They're kind of just these staid bureaucracies that are more concerned with just continuing the status quo than really getting better at things. So what we brought to the table that was new and has been pivotal in many ways is, number one, some infrared imaging technology that we invented to help map these fires more accurately, and then share that information through apps and real-time downlink technology so these firefighters would have better awareness of what's going on around them. So that's one technology that Bridger's invented. And then water bombers, just bomb those fires into submission. We have the largest fleet of water bombers that is privately owned in the world, and we operate those worldwide. And those just come in and they just beat the hell out of the fire once it's reported, and we work hard.
Unbelievable. Let's expand that out to some environmental policy. I think it's pretty obvious now that the environmentalists have really screwed up forest management. I think most people are on board with that. But just in general, how are conservatives the true environmentalists?
Well, thank you for bringing that up, because this is a topic that we get circles run around us every time, because especially here in Montana, the Democrats brand Republicans as this kind of, they're going to sell off our public lands. They're going to block them off. We're anti-public lands, which couldn't be further from the truth, as you just pointed out, because the actual party that really actually wants to take away our public lands, and frankly has been taking them away, is the Democrats, because they have taken the publicly owned lands in the United States away from the public, and they've placed them into the hands of bureaucrats thousands of miles away and radical environmentalist groups who have infiltrated these bureaucracies, some of them international groups. And they are deciding what's happening in our forests, on our public grazing lands, and they are passing policies with no input from the local population, with no input from the neighboring communities, and with no regard for the economic, social, and environmental impact their policies have, like wildfires. And what I've advocated for extremely vocally, and still am to this day, and this is why John Tester's attacking me on public lands every day on the air, is because I'm trying to expose the fraud that bureaucrats and environmentalists have hijacked our public lands, and we, the public, no longer have a voice in how those lands are managed. And I believe that if you live in a local community, especially in the Western United States, you should have more say in what happens in those public lands that neighbor your community than bureaucrats or environmentalists thousands of miles away. And the Republican Party is advocating for that.
I didn't know Tester was attacking you on this. I just randomly asked you that question. So what is he saying? What is he saying you want to do with these public lands, / what do you want to do with public land?
Well, his narrative, which is the same for every Democrat candidate in Montana, they always roll out this same old trope that, look, your Republican opponent, this guy's going to sell off your public lands, which is ridiculous, unconstitutional.
To who? To like developers or something? Like to some housing developments, or what are they? What's the fear?
Who knows? They know it's a lie. It's just a line of attack that works because we have very dedicated outdoorsmen. So they come out and just say Republicans are going to sell off your public lands, so they're going to restrict access to your public lands, like fence them off and not let you in. First of all, that's unconstitutional. Second of all, no one has actually ever done that. But they know it's a line of attack that will take typically conservative voters who would vote Republican, hunters and backcountry adventurers. Say, you know what? Well, boy, I would vote for this guy, but he's going to block my access to public land, so I'm going to vote for the other guy.
Yeah.
There's no truth to it, but they know it's an attack line that works. And as we know, the Democrats don't really care about truth anyways. They just care about winning elections.
What do you want to do with the public land?
Public lands must always stay public, but it should be actually in the hands of the public, which means our communities, the local communities, should have say in how those public lands are managed. Because in states like Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Nevada, we'll have local communities that are surrounded by public lands, whether it's national forest or Bureau of Land Management grazing lands or national parks, you name it. And those people live amongst those communities. Like I share a fence line right now. I'm on my farm looking outside. I share a fence line with public land. I have no control over what happens on that public land beyond, Mother, may I please, I have a huge amount of fuel loading. Can I go clear out that forest? Can I go spray weeds?
Yeah.
And we're not allowed to have any control over that land, which is unfair to the local community because the bureaucrats thousands of miles away have control over it.
Exactly. Because that's the principle. Because bureaucrats in D.C. are the ones who are controlling your public land in Montana.
Exactly.
That's crazy. Tim Sheehy, hey, we got to run. Let's do it again. He's running for U.S. Senate in Montana. Let's just knock this one out and be done with this one. What's the website? How can people help you?
I appreciate that. TimForMT.com.